All right, everybody, I want to welcome you to another episode of the Evolution Project podcast. And today I have Sir Daniel Edvalson. Now, the Sir Daniel actually came, I don't know if he was actually knighted or not, but in my mind, Danny has Sir in front of his name. And I think we're in for a pretty big treat today because if you were to ask me of my friends, who do I feel has been through the greatest change in the last 5 years of my life? I would say Danny is probably in the top category of that conversation. And what we're going to get into today is this is a conversation that I haven't actually had with Danny yet. So it's going to be really interesting because it's new to me as well. Danny,
Yeah.
first off, would you just introduce yourself and maybe talk a little bit about who you think you are?
Sure. Let's see. I grew up in the Boise, Idaho area. Currently live
Okay.
in Mapleton, Utah, with
Yeah.
my sweet wife of 21 years and 8 children.
Hey, Danny, but before we get too excited here, I think it would be valuable for you to introduce the assumed identity of Sir Daniel Edvalson. Could you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. As you're saying, my name is Danny Edvalson, but you're slightly wrong on the Sir. It's actually Sir Daniel William. Yes, which
Okay.
is my middle name, and it's a presumption of a upcoming knighthood. It has not happened yet, and I'm not British, so I don't actually know how that goes. But yeah, I currently live in Mapleton, Utah, with my wife of 21 years and my 8 kiddos. Spent most of my professional career in the pest control world, both doing the sales and the operational side of things. And I love to write. I enjoy writing poetry. I enjoy watercolor painting. I enjoy sitting by the ocean or any body of water. And typically, when there's something I want to reflect on, I find myself there. And just really grateful generally that God is a God of second chances or fifth chances or 1,000
Yeah.
chances. And He certainly gave me plenty and continues to do so, of course. And I will just be forever grateful for his bounty and the love that he shows both to me and my kids and my wife and all of us. And yeah, I'm just really
Yeah.
grateful for that.
Danny, I will tell you, without getting too much into history and story here, one of my favorite things about you is that I feel like you're a student of life. And I feel like I've literally watched you go from someone that has been incredibly cerebral and guarded at some level to somebody that is very heartfelt and extremely present. And one of the things that I really want to kind of dive into today is about, what was it, Danny, 6 months ago, 5 months ago? He sent me a text. And by the way, Danny is one of the people that actually gets pinned in my phone. So Danny does have a special place in my heart. And he sends me this text message and he's like, hey, I think I'm going to California to do a silent retreat. Wasn't it like, do you know any good places and something like that? I need to go to the beach or something like that. Do you know any good places? I know I'm not saying it exactly right, but essentially you were like, hey, I'm going on a quest. I'm going on an adventure quest.
Yeah, no, that's right. At the time I sent you that text, I hadn't decided where I
Mm.
was going to go or even what that was going to be like. And I was really just looking for a room, for a way to do it cheap. I didn't figure I'd spend most of my time inside anyway. I'd just be out on the beach and out, doing things. And so knowing that you frequent the Southern California area, I thought maybe you would have some connections. So I texted you about that. And I texted several people and, several people that lived down there. And long story short, nobody really had anything that was that good or that viable of an option. And to maybe back up a little bit, a couple of weeks prior to that, I had told my wife, and I just had this feeling. I had told my wife, hey, I have this feeling that I need to be by the ocean. I need to go visit the ocean.
One of the things that I've always been so impressed about with you is your intuition. You'll start out sentences with me and you go, Bryan, I just have a hunch. And I love when you start those sentences out that way because it's like dot, dot, dot. What is Danny going to say next? You have really good intuition. Do you feel that's just like a gift that you've been given? Or do you feel like that's a muscle that you've had to develop over time? Because when you reach out to me about this trip, it was like, hey, I'm thinking of going to California. I'm thinking of being by the ocean. And I immediately was like, oh, dude, you should go to Encinitas. Like that's what you should do.
Yeah.
But it kind of started to morph. Like, tell me more about how that works for you and how it comes up. Is it a muscle or is it a gift?
No, I think it's a muscle, and it's a muscle that I believe is born out of letting go more and more and more. As humans, as divine beings, we are incredibly gifted, all kinds of messages, but we screen most of them. I should say, I'll just speak for myself. I screen most of them because of what I think it might mean, or because I'm trying to control some outcome. And so a big part of my journey has been to pull that back. What is it like if I don't try and control the outcome so much? What is it like if I'm willing to let go and do things that don't make sense to other people, or maybe even to myself, or whatever the case is? And I have found that the more willingness I give to that, the more often I experience deep impressions of what would be next, or something that would be good, or whatever the case. So that's what happened here, was that I just felt deeply that it would be good to go to California and to be at the coast, to be by the ocean. And I told my wife that, and being the planner and the connector that she is, immediately jumps in and says, "Sweet, when do you want to plan a vacation?" And for about a week, I sat with that and I thought, I don't really know how to say, like, I don't want anyone else to come. I just want to go by myself. So anyway, we were at dinner out on a date one Friday night, and I just said, "Hey, honey, I want to go be by the ocean, and I just want to go by myself." And she said, "Great, let's plan it, do it, go for it." And so right then and there, we were sitting at a Longhorn Steakhouse, and she said, "Where are you going to go? What are you gonna do?" And so I started to look up. I started to look up hostels. I started to look up. That's when I texted you. That's when I started to do these things. And then I found a couple of Zen Buddhist monasteries, and I thought, oh, that would be a great way to do that. And initially, I was actually looking just for somewhere that was cheap, that wasn't going to cost me $250 a night or whatever, because I didn't want to spend that. And then I came across one that was called the New Camaldoli Hermitage, and the difference between a monastery and a hermitage is that a monastery is only where monks are, and you can visit, but you can't stay. And that's opposed to a hermitage, where it is exactly what it sounds like. You can go and reside there even if you're not part of the clergy or part of the. And it was in the Big Sur area, which is this 100-mile stretch of just absolutely gorgeous untamed wilderness along the California coast. And it basically was saying all the things that I wanted to hear. There's no cell reception. You're 1,000 miles, or not 1,000 miles, you're 1,000 feet above sea level, all kinds of animal life. Anyway, so as soon as I saw that, I showed it to my wife and I said, "I think this is the one." And she goes, "Sweet, book it." So I booked it.
And let's just be clear. This hermitage, it's not just, hey, Danny's going to go hang out with monks up in the Big Sur mountains. It was more than that, Danny. And I just want to make sure we don't step over that part, because I think this is a pretty big part of the conversation. Danny, what was it actually?
Yeah, so it was a self-guided silent retreat. So in other words,
There we go.
yeah, yeah. I
Now, let's pause for a minute, because, I imagine the person listening to this, they're going, silent retreat. Interesting, right? I feel like in the last couple years, I've not only seen like silent retreats, but even more so, I've seen people where they put like a blinder on, and then they like go inside of a cabin and they're in complete darkness for a couple days, like all alone in silence. And I'm like a sensory. It's not just silence. It's like a sensory thing. You're all by yourself. And I'm like, that actually sounds incredibly scary to me. That seems like, dude, sitting with no sensory inputs, with no light, with no anything for, 3, 4, 5 days, that seems horrific. A silent retreat, I'm sitting there thinking, well, at least I can still see. At least I can still have other people around me. I may not be talking, which I like to talk, Danny. I like to talk. But it seems like a really great intro into it. Now, when you did this, Danny, was there a commitment of time that they asked? Like how does that framework work out? What do they set up with you when you sign up?
No, when you do your own thing. And so there were people that had been there for a couple days. There are people that just popped in overnight. I arrived on Sunday afternoon and I left on Friday afternoon. So a good solid 5, 6 days.
Okay. So you Aaron's on board with this, super supportive. High five, Aaron. Thank you. What you started and thought was going to be the ocean and spend a little bit of time by yourself morphed quickly into a silent retreat.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
And if I remember correctly, Danny, I mean, it was in like a what, 3-week period, 4-week period. You were on the journey to go there. It was pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was. Yep. We had to, yeah, no, it was my wife, Erin. She was the one that actually found, because when I kept looking for these dates, and I was looking for date ranges and looking for rooms, and I couldn't find anything that matched up. And she turned her phone and showed it to me. It was like, boom, there's your room. And it was the Saint Benedict room in the new Camaldoli Hermitage. And so I booked it. And yeah, that was interesting, because typically if I need to travel for work or whatnot, I can still talk with my kids. I can still chat with my wife. But as I started driving over there from here Saturday, and I just kind of made a commitment that I was just going to be I was going to start my silent retreat on my drive over, and I did. My wife and I talked a few times, just kind of hi bye, love you, good night kind of thing. But yeah, so by the time that I showed up Saturday afternoon, I feel like I was, or Sunday afternoon, I feel like I was primed to just experience whatever it was going to be.
Okay, so you have a drive. You have about a 12-hour drive.
Mhm.
You're already getting into this mode of silence. Did you have any fears? Did you have any preconceived notions? Did you have any expectations? Did you have any attachments? Like what was the call? Like what was really the call, Danny? Was it just like Danny needs to be with Danny right now?
Mm. Uh, the call was God has something sitting there for Danny, but he can't access it in the way that Danny's currently experiencing life. So,
Fitting. How fitting that you get to go into the wilderness. Like that's kind of God's MO, I think,
yeah,
you know.
I think it was both to the wilderness, but also, the Zen Buddhist monasteries I think would be fascinating to go to. I probably will go another time, but this one was interesting because it was a Christ-centered place, and it was full of deep spiritual meaning, deep spiritual rituals. The people that were all there were all on some level committed to or open to Jesus Christ. And so I feel like that was an important part of that experience for me.
Mm.
And I've done enough of these kinds of things where I know that the more I try to guess what it's going to be like or what the outcome is going to be like, the less I get from it. I also experienced that, when you go to a place, or you go to, even an evolution project is like this. If you show up with the idea of what you're going to get out of it, my experience is that thing comes and goes pretty quick, and then the conversation is, okay, so now what?
That's right.
And in the first day I was there, so Sunday evening through Monday, I had basically resolved and tied up in a nice little thread all of the things I was currently thinking about, all the issues, I had done a lot of writing in my journal. I'd done a lot of walking. I'd done these things, and it was all nice and beautiful. But by the time that the first day rolled around, I was done. So now the next question was, okay, so now what?
Yeah.
And that was the part I believe that God was waiting for me to sit with, was all the stuff that was in my mind was now cleared, and I didn't have anything else to do for several days. I didn't have any commitments. I didn't have anyone that I needed to talk to. I didn't have anything else to do other than to just be with myself and him in that space.
So, what I hear you saying is that you felt a call, you felt an invitation, you answered the call, you had a hunch of what you thought this maybe was going to be, and then you were open to completely however that was going to go. You show up, you go through day one. Could you talk maybe just a little bit about like what does the facility look like? What does a typical day look like? I mean, you gave some background. Like one of the things that was unique about this, I heard you say, is like Jesus Christ is very much a part of the conversation, which it's fantastic. So is it Buddhist or is it like Jesuit? Like
Sorry,
what
no,
is
it's a full-on Catholic Benedictine monastery.
okay.
Yeah.
I just had this vision in my mind of all these dudes in like orange
Mm.
robes,
Yeah, no.
like walking around and stuff. And I'm like, wow, talking about Jesus. Like, Danny, you've that's an ascended place,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah. Well,
Okay. So this absolutely is like you said, it's a is it a monastery? I
yeah,
mean,
it is. It's a full monastery, but
okay.
it's a hermitage, which means outsiders, quote unquote, like myself, can show up and stay there as well. And
Okay. Awesome.
And so there were probably 12 different rooms that you could book. The main little section was basically overlooking the ocean. So out my window, I could see the ocean, and it was fun. I saw whales out there. I saw little dolphins playing in the water, jumping and having a good old time. But very, Spartan kind of room. And there was a community kitchen where you went and got your meals, and there was um, a shared shower, not that you shared at the same time, but that there was basically two showers that everybody could use. And for breakfast, it was, boiled eggs and oatmeal and toast. For lunch, lunch was the one time they provided a hot meal, and then dinner, it was basically something that they had made either yesterday or today, and then they put it in containers in the fridge at 4:30 and basically said, bring your plate, get what you want, warm it up, and that's your dinner. So yeah, and then no desserts, no nothing like that. So it was uh it was nice. You didn't have to think about what the next meal was going to be. You didn't have to. Do you could just do your thing, and that was the function of it. And then at 7:30 and 11:30 and 5:30 they did different parts of their Catholic worship. At 7:30 in the morning they did their vespers, which is kind of like affirmations and things like that. At 11:30 they did their mass, and then at 5:30 they did victuals and prayer. And then yeah, so that's the layout, but it's like I say, it's sitting up about 1,000 feet above the ocean, and there's a steep descent to the ocean from there. And so it was just this vast expanse of sea that was there.
Awesome. So what I hear you saying is it's very simple.
Very simple.
It sounds like there is a structure that you're following. I mean, right? That they're inviting you into, I guess. They're not
Yeah.
making you do anything.
No.
But there are things going on throughout the day where it's kind of like, we invite you to come to
Yeah,
this.
definitely.
Is anyone talking? Is there any like one leading people what to do? Or is it kind of just no?
No one.
There is no sound.
No sound.
Okay. Wow.
I mean, other than when the father's up doing mass or vespers or victuals, yes, they're speaking at that time. But in terms of those of us that were attending, no speaking, no sound, nothing.
So, Danny, I'm trying to think about this like in a practical way, right? I mean, is it fair to say that there is something to be gained in stillness? I mean, can we all like agree on that? Like there's something in stillness. I know for me, Danny, like there are, I know that there are times that I keep myself busy to avoid dealing. It's just it's a more creative mousetrap that I create to avoid actually doing the stillness and the sitting. What did you hear God's voice differently during this period of time? And like, I know we're talking kind of about your experience, but I would love for you to maybe talk to people right now in a sense of someone that like is listening to this going, this sounds really interesting to me, but it also seems like a million miles away from me right now. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, certainly. And you don't need to go, you don't need to go to a Catholic monastery on the ocean to experience this. This was just a call that I felt, but truly probably not one that I could have capitalized on, a year ago or 2 years ago without my other experiences of stillness and solitude and quiet. A lot of times I think people are probably familiar with the difference between a prayer that is sincere and earnest compared to a prayer that is said through routine. And the thing that I might suggest is that the simple difference between those two is the stillness that you give to it. One is a still experience, and the other one is a rushed, feels like everything else. And you can experience stillness in a lot of different ways and in a lot of different times, even throughout the day. But stillness is where creativity comes from. Stillness is where you find yourself. And yeah, we all there are times where we all are looking to avoid what's really sitting there. And But stillness, if taken time to even nothing more than to just sit out on your porch in the morning, in the stillness of the morning. The thing that I gained and that I continue to gain from stillness is to understand that there's a separation between what my mind wants me to do and what is good for me. And stillness is the place where that distinction becomes obvious.
So you gave some really good nuggets right there. Like stillness is available all the time.
Yeah, yeah. No, I just had a business meeting with one of my business partners, and the conversation was good and positive. The topic itself was, maybe a little intense, but even in that, sitting beneath all of that is a stillness, is a an understanding that all these things that are happening on the surface in the business, they're just on the surface. So there's a quote by Yogananda in his book Life of a Yogi, and he tells of an experience where he has this incredible enlightening experience with his master, with his yogi. And when they're done, the yogi says, okay, now there's the broom. Get up and sweep the floor. And Yogananda was thinking, no, I just had this incredible experience. I don't want to sweep the floor now. And then his yogi said, we all must learn that the spirit can, I need to make sure I say this right. The spirit can span the cosmogonic abyss while the body must go about its daily task. And both of those things are available. And when we come from a place of stillness, then the people that experience us, they get our true self. And that doesn't mean that I don't have a spreadsheet to work on tomorrow. That doesn't mean that when I go home, there's not dishes to do. But just because there are things happening on the surface, it doesn't mean that we can't also experience the depth at the same time. And that I would say is the muscle that can be exercised and worked on.
Yeah, the tension created between those two things, right? This saying that goes, we're spiritual beings having an earthly experience. I often think that these practices, as simple as it sounds, right? Sweeping. You could think, well, why would I need to learn sweeping? I think of Karate Kid,
Yeah.
right? He goes to learn karate and he's like, hey, you're going to wax the car, right? And he's like, dude, why am I waxing your car? Why am I doing all this stuff around your house? And as time goes on, like what he learns is that Mr. Miyagi was teaching him karate the whole time. But there was this physical element to it, but there was also this spiritual element to it, you know? I watched Karate Kid the other day. And I just love how, there's these modalities that can teach us these truths in life that are at like a deeper level. And Danny, direct experience, as well as I do, that is where the rubber really hits the road in everything in life,
Yeah, well, I mean, it's true. We say that quote that you just said on a regular basis. We say, and you hear things like we're not physical beings have spiritual experiences. We're a spiritual being having a physical experience. Um, I wonder what it would look like to double down on that as a truth, right? Things would be really different. And the thing is, though, is that it doesn't mean that we all become monks and go live at the monastery because we're spiritual beings. No, it means that even though there are still floors to sweep and reports to write, that there is sitting beneath all of that the truth, which is that we are divine spirits that have incredible infinite capacity to love and connect and to heal and to be open and available to both life and to other people. All of that can be true while we go around doing our daily tasks. Because the truth is, our daily tasks are fairly inconsequential, right? If I make money this way versus you make money that way, that's great. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, when we all move on to the next life, how shallow or how sad it will be if we get up there and say, well, how much money did you make back there? Nobody's gonna care. And it's just like, it's just like Rockefeller's accountant said when he was asked how much he left. The answer was
All of it.
all of it. And so, but we get caught up quite naturally. And I certainly no judgment from me because takes one to know one, but I get so easily caught up in the rigmarole of what's happening on the surface that I forget that actually that's just the dance,
Yeah. Amen.
not even the music.
Danny, so I'd love, I think there's a couple things I'd like to invite people into this conversation, right? The first thing I think I'd like to invite people into is because, part of the work, let's just call it the work, right? Is like finding yourself in places and containers where you can be still enough to receive truth, right? For you personally. Danny, I know that you facilitate breath work on a monthly basis. I think that would be great if we could just throw out an invitation right now for people. If someone wanted to just be like, "Hey, I don't have a weekend," right? Cuz what I don't want people doing in this podcast is like listening to this thinking, "Well, like I guess I got to go find, a hermitage in the mountains or somewhere to go find stillness and talk with God." Like I would say if that's what they took away from this, we probably missed the mark,
Yeah, I
right?
would agree. Yeah.
So it's like, what is available to you right now? And I'm going to actually share a story with this. I remember I was talking to my mission president. Shout out David Clark. I love you, David Clark. Thank you, my mission president. So after my mission, I'm like super pumped. I'm like, oh, dude, I'm going to go out and change the world. And I remember, he was a pretty wealthy person. And I was talking to him and I'm like, dude, I just want to be like you so I can, go and do these humanitarian things and, fund this project and he was doing really cool stuff in the world. And he said, Bryan, I think it's so great that you want to do that stuff. And he said, I bet there's things in your community right now that you could do that would be just as impactful. And I remember I was like, yeah, but I mean, it sounds way cooler to go to Ecuador and build a foundation, dude. But as I've lived on with life, like, I think the truth is like oftentimes the next step is the thing that's right in front of you.
Mm,
And we're always on to ourselves. So these concepts of like, well, how do I find presence and how do I find stillness right now? Danny, is there anything that you would kind of just like throw out to people that maybe could be to the man that's listening to this or the woman that's listening to this and saying, I'm intrigued by this, but like, where do I start?
sure. Yeah. And I think that I probably would maybe alter the invitation or put one of my own out there, which is that
Yeah.
generally speaking, this isn't a new idea. Right? People know that to find a place of quiet every now and then is a good thing.
Yeah.
People generally know that to slow down and to just pause is a good thing. And so my invitation would be something like, if you know that's the case for you, and yet you continue to not do it, if you continue to find ways to avoid it, my invitation would be to explore that simply because sitting beneath there is a truth. And that truth is something that at the moment you're not really wanting to hear much. Otherwise, you would just do the thing. And so my invitation is to take a look at that. If you know it's a good thing, but it's something that you're not prioritizing. And this is, of course, true with all the stuff that I know is good, but I don't prioritize. But when that is the case and asking myself where the disconnect is in that usually yields a pretty useful answer. But outside of that, you don't have to know the answer to that question before you jump into stillness. And stillness looks 100 different ways. Go for a walk in the morning without your headphones, 10 minutes. Go sit in a sauna somewhere with or without your headphones. Go for a hike with friends, without friends, but just for a time of that hike, just be silent. Write a journal entry to yourself. Pray. Literally sit on the porch and drink your hot cocoa or coffee or mate or whatever it is that you do in the morning. Just sit and do that. There are 100 ways to be still. Instead of listening to a book on Audible, take the same book and read it. Not the whole thing, just for 10 minutes, and not even every day. Just once a week. If you have religion in your past and you're not currently doing anything religious, do something religious. Doesn't matter what denomination. It doesn't matter with whom you do it with. Find a church, find a sermon, look it up online, or just go be in a park and watch what God has created and put on this earth for us. There are so many ways to be still. You
Mhm.
don't need a breathwork session. You don't need a monastery. You don't need an evolution project. These are all ways to maybe deepen your experience with stillness. There may be ways to help you break through the outer shell, to be willing to look at some things. But stillness is a beautiful thing. In fact, next time when you get in your car, instead of turning on music for the next 14 minutes while you go from point A to point B, just do nothing but drive. There are lots and lots of ways. And if you are really curious to see what happens, if you have a family, gather your family before bedtime for 10 or 15 minutes and just sit in the same room and be still. It's harder to do for little kids than for bigger kids. Actually, that's not totally true because little kids get fidgety, bigger kids get annoyed and they are like, why are we doing this? And the answer is, I don't know, just be still, see what comes up for you. You say it all the time, Bryan. God is doing the magic trick right in front of us, and stillness is one of those avenues, one of those mediums.
I was talking with my friend Kurt Frankum, and he runs this experience called A Warrior Heart.
Mm.
And after each little section, they have a vow of silence where nobody talks, but it's usually like a 30 to 45-minute session. So they want you to sit with the conversation and, you can take a chair, you can go, there's a lot of pretty views and you could just sit there with it. You can write in your journal. And one of the guys comes up to him and he goes, I never realized how loud God was talking to me until I sat in silence. And he talks to me all the time. And I think that's it makes me so happy. It's so great, Danny. This conversation was so good for me today, man. Because I know we could talk so much more about your experience and what did God say to you, but I don't know if that's the point, that's yours.
Yeah, no, I agree. And what you just said reminds me of there's a C.S. Lewis quote that I love. It's in the Screw Tape Letters. And
Yeah.
for those that are not familiar with the Screw Tape Letters, Screw Tape is a senior devil in this little novel book, and he keeps writing letters to his apprentice nephew, trying to show him how to be a proper devil and whatnot. And one of the things that he says is that it's far less the things that we put into the mind of man that does the damage, and far more the things that we keep out. In other words, God is showering us. We are showering us with knowledge, with understanding, with intuition. And stillness is a very simple way to open up the receptacle so that we can hold it.
Well, Danny, I want to thank you for being present with me today. And I mean, always, dude. It is rare that I don't walk away from interactions more resolved to, pay more attention to the magic tricks that are just
Yeah.
being right in front of my face, dude. That's honestly how it goes.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think that's what good friendships do.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's the point. Is there anything you want to leave with us before we go, or you feel complete in our?
I think I would say that there are some listeners right now that are in a place of distress or duress, maybe even having some real pain point, whether it be in your marriage relationship or with your children, or even just trying to understand and manage life. And I just want you to know that you're loved and that you're seen in ways that it's almost impossible to understand when you're in the middle of it. But there are people that do see, and one of the most important things that we can do when we're in those moments is to experience connection and to reach out. It's such a masculine trait to hold it all in and bottle it up. And if the difficulty is in your marriage, then especially that is true, because it's very difficult to know where you can turn to have a real conversation. But my invitation would be that if you're feeling any of that, find a brother that you can connect with. And you might even need to say something like, hey, I need to unload some stuff and I'd like you to not respond. I just need to unload. And certainly, I don't know how this works, Bryan, but if there's anybody that's listening that could use that, I know that I'm certainly happy to be that for somebody. And I know you are too, Bryan. But anyway, I just want you to know you're loved, and life is hard and shit gets hard and it's difficult. And I get it. And I just want to say that.
Amen. Well, it must have been a good session, Danny, because I don't have any words to say right now, As we say, I feel complete.
Well, in that case,
That's right. We touch our chests, and that says it all, man. I want to thank everybody for just being present with us today. That is the gift that you've given to us, and hopefully we've given to you. And just want to tell you thank you for listening to another episode of The Evolution Project. We love you guys. All right.